evening, and welcome to NC State's annual Take Back the Night, hosted by the NC State Women's Center. My name is Carlin Wright-Eakes. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Interpersonal Violence Prevention Education Coordinator with the Women's Center. I am delighted to be your host for this year's Take Back the Night. The Women's Center is one of 4 campus community centers at NC State within the Office for Institutional Equity and Diversity. Our mission is to build and create a community of authentic and engaged allies and leaders to pursue gender equity and social justice, enhancing our campus climate through education, advocacy, support, and leadership development. We do this in many different ways, including our signature events and series, as well as celebrating and honoring specific awareness months. This month, the month of April, is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is part of a national campaign to bring attention to the issue of interpersonal violence on college campuses. During the month of April, we hold events and trainings to help raise awareness about interpersonal violence, including sexual assault, dating and domestic violence, sexual harassment, and stalking. Take Back the Night, a signature event for NC State's campus, kicks off our month-long series of events for SAM. We are honored to have you with us here tonight and hope that you will join us for additional events this month. I'd like to take a moment to honor the land that North Carolina State University sits on. Is land that was originally stewarded by 2 Indigenous tribes, the Tuscarora and the Catawba. We invite you now to share in the chat feature the Indigenous land where you are currently located as you join us virtually tonight. If this concept is new to you or you're not sure, you can text your zip code to the number 907-312-5085 to learn more about the land where you currently reside. We honor these tribes today in recognition that this institution of higher education was built on land taken from those who were here before us. We remember the important history of this land in order to break the cycle of colonization and the continued erasure of Indigenous peoples. We choose to remember our collective history as an act of resistance and solidarity as we work together towards a future free from all forms of violence. During this presentation, we will use interpersonal violence, or IPV, as an umbrella term for things like domestic and dating violence, stalking and sexual misconduct, which includes sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, and any non-consensual sexual encounters. Interpersonal violence can take many forms, including physical, sexual, emotional, or financial. We also want to recognize that people of all gender identities and sexual orientations may experience forms of IPV during their lifetime. Interpersonal violence is pervasive and it can impact anyone, regardless of their gender identity, sexual orientation, race, class, ethnicity, or ability. Despite many stereotypes that exist and persist today, anyone of any sexual orientation, gender identity, race, class, ethnicity can be a victim or survivor or a perpetrator. We also recognize that because of prejudice and systems of oppression, many survivors face additional and compounded barriers. While we work to end IPV, we are also committed to ending systemic racism, homophobia, and all forms of violence. We acknowledge this because we believe all systems of oppression are interwoven. We will now take a moment of silence to honor the lives that have been lost too soon by domestic and dating violence, systemic racism, homophobia, xenophobia, and all forms of violence and oppression. As we move through our program tonight, I encourage you, wherever you are, to take a moment to plant your feet firmly on the ground. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and take a deep breath in. Tonight's program is to honor the voices of survivors and the students, educators, and activists on our campus fighting tirelessly to end interpersonal violence. Tonight is also about you, honoring your story, your body, your breath, and everything that brought you to be here with us this evening. If at any point, for any reason, you'd like to speak with a counselor, you can join a private Zoom breakout for NC State students at go.ncsu.edu/tbtntalk. Additional local and national resources for survivors can be found in the chat. You are not alone. This is the second year we will be holding Take Back the Night virtually. While we miss the energy of being in person, filling up Tally Student Union with cheering and applause and all of our campus community, this past year has brought different challenges and different opportunities for reflection and creation. This year, virtually, we will be focusing on the resilience, creativity, and strength of our campus community. We'll hear from the voices of student leaders, members of the movement peer educators, from advocates with the Women's Center, and university leadership. We'll also be sharing some tips and tools from our Survivor Toolkit. And we'll celebrate the stories and voices of the survivors who have inspired us nationally, and the stories and voices of survivors with courage and bravery right here in our campus community.
Hello, Wolfpack community. I am Sherry Schwab, and I use she, her pronouns. I serve as the Vice Provost for Institutional Equity and Diversity and the university's Title IX Coordinator. I'm also a proud alumna of NC State. Here at NC State, we take the health, safety, and well-being of our students, staff, and faculty very seriously. NC State is committed to eliminating discrimination and harassment in all forms, including interpersonal violence. IPV is not tolerated here at NC State, full stop. It is contrary to our values of ensuring a safe, equitable, and violence-free environment. It is also a barrier to achieving health and wellness, student success, and institutional excellence. We know that interpersonal violence, relationship violence, sexual assault, and stalking are all too common at universities across the country. We also know that they are vastly underreported. In fact, 90% of campus sexual assaults in the United States are never reported. We at NC State hope to change that, and we need your help. The Office for Institutional Equity and Diversity supports the university community by providing education, services, and resources to support and guide individuals in obtaining the help they need as it relates to the elimination of interpersonal violence. We will do everything in our power to educate people about these issues and to prevent interpersonal violence from occurring on our campus community. And we expect you to do the same. It's on all of us to prevent IPV from occurring. We want you to learn the signs of IPV, to intervene as active bystanders, to challenge the harmful narratives that perpetuate interpersonal violence and victim blaming, and to support one another if and when it does occur. Should you experience interpersonal violence, know that it is not your fault and you are not alone. Let me repeat that. It is not your fault, and you are not alone. We are here to help. We pride ourselves on providing an array of resources available to all members of the Wolfpack. You can learn more about these issues, including your rights, options, and resources, by visiting go.ncsu.edu/safe. Thank you for being a part of NC State and for committing to playing an active role in creating and fostering a safe and supportive Wolfpack community.
Since 1987, NC State's annual Take Back the Night March has fought against and raised awareness of sexual violence and rape prevention on campus. Nationally, the Take Back the Night movement sought to reclaim sexual assault survivors' agency through mass protests and demonstrations. During the 1970s, the national movement, led primarily by white women, often excluded queer and trans folks, people of color, and men. Over the past 3 decades, NC State's Take Back the Night March and other rape prevention programs have remained part of campus's social and cultural fabric. Campus advocates have fought for more inclusive marches, continue to promote peer education and rape prevention efforts, and strive for ways to support all survivors. Historically, Take Back the Night marches brought needed attention to sexual assault and rape, but often reinforced other harmful sexual violence myths. These marches attempted to reclaim socially enforced notions that women were unsafe in public after dark. Take Back the Night promoted the stranger in the bushes rape myth, but did little to bring attention to interpersonal violence and acquaintance rape. Today, statistics show that 90% of completed and attempted rapes on college campuses are committed by acquaintances of the survivor. Take Back the Night also reinforced racist stereotypes that criminalized and hypersexualized Black men, especially in the South, as perpetrators of sexual violence.
In the 70s and 80s, NC State sought to increase outdoor security as their primary rape prevention strategy. Students advocated for emergency phones and blue lights on campus, organized annual night walks where they determined particularly dark areas and reported them to campus safety officials, and implemented a security escort service. Prior to the first Take Back the Night march at NC State, campus advocates started to promote safety measures that focused on interpersonal violence. In a 1986 Technician article, a crime prevention officer stated, "We could light up the entire campus at night, and that still won't cut out the problems of acquaintance rape," which ushered in more conversations on campus around the role of consent, the effects alcohol can have on sexual violence, and pushing for rape prevention education into the dorms. In the early marches, Take Back the Night drew hundreds of students who assembled at dusk to march and chant across campus. Protesters gathered in the Brickyard where they listened to guest speakers, encouraged survivors to share their experiences through a speak out, and held a candlelight vigil. Throughout the 90s, student groups that were excluded from the dominant national narratives around sexual violence fought for representation in states' marches and awareness efforts. Black sororities, fraternities, and student orgs invited keynote speakers to the African American Cultural Center to address cultures of silence, stigma, and underreporting within their community. Leaders spoke at and helped organize Take Back the Night marches. They also advocated for rape prevention education through the Black-led student newspaper, The Nubian Message. Queer leaders in the Bisexuals, Gays, Lesbians, and Allies student organization also spoke at marches and advocated against campus's dominant, heteronormative discourse around interpersonal violence.
In 1991, Rape Prevention Education Services secured institutional support through the construction of the Women's Center. In 1995, NC State participated in the nationally recognized Clothesline Project, which it continues to support today. In 1999, the Molly Hayes Glander 24-hour support hotline, now the Sexual Assault Helpline, was created. Since 2008, the movement Interpersonal Violence peer educators work to promote survivor advocacy, education, and prevention efforts that confront rape culture on campus.
Join together for your life! We will not be victimized! Join together for your life! We will not be victimized!
Today, rape prevention and support services focus on survivor advocacy for students from all backgrounds, gender identities, and sexual orientations. The Women's Center has trained advocates who support survivors of interpersonal violence in understanding their options in navigating healing and recovery through crisis intervention and emotional support, research navigation and referrals, accompaniment to court, student conduct hearings, academic and housing accommodations, reporting options, and financial assistance. Rape and interpersonal violence remain prevalent issues on campuses across the nation. Understanding the history of rape prevention efforts at State helps to better serve all survivors as we strive as a community to end interpersonal violence on campus.
Hi everyone, I'm Tashana Flewellen, and I am the current president of the Movement Interpersonal Violence Peer Educators. I'm a fourth-year student in textile engineering here at NC State, and I just want to first thank you all for attending the 34th annual Take Back the Night rally. It was originally organized by rape crisis centers and domestic abuse shelters. Take Back the Night was a protest focused on speaking out about the portrayals of women in media, women who were assaulted on their way home, and other forms of interpersonal violence. Take Back the Night was represented through marches after dark, candlelight vigils, and speak-outs that allowed those who participated to reclaim space that was originally unsafe. Take Back the Night was originally held in bigger cities such as Philadelphia or Chicago, but now happens across many college campuses, including ours here at NC State. Our first Take Back the Night march on NC State's campus was held in 1987 with over 70 participants from communities such as the NC State Sexual Assault Prevention Program, the Office of Student Affairs, and the National Organization of Women. As each year passes, we represent new issues and groups as we become more inclusive. At the start of Take Back the Night, it was largely organized by white women, without respect to racist depictions in the media, and heighten the false narrative of Black men being rapists and white men as the saviors or protectors. We hold this space on campus to allow students of any background to come together and advocate for themselves or others and be able to share their stories. As a student leader on campus, I have learned to share my own stories and use my voice over the years that I have been a member of the movement. I hope that events and spaces such as Take Back the Night allow people to reclaim their stories and support friends and family who may have had experiences with interpersonal violence. I originally joined the movement as a survivor who was previously affected by IPV, and I realized that it was still such a hush-hush topic when 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men experience some form of interpersonal violence in their lifetime. As a community, we can make a difference by being active bystanders and providing support to survivors, by doing things such as taking action when things are wrong and believing survivors and the stories they share, creating safe spaces for survivors and not enabling perpetrators by letting them feel comfortable with their actions and words, or still communicating with them after a friend or survivor expresses discomfort. While this event happens annually, it is important to create space throughout the year for people to feel safe and be able to share their stories if they wish, keeping in mind that support in the healing process may look different for each survivor. Be an active bystander, a trusting friend, or a passionate advocate for yourself and others around you.
Tips from the Survivor Toolkit. Begin a daily practice of loving yourself. In moments of crisis, taking care of yourself does involve the daily routines and practices that make you feel good, like getting your nails done, getting a massage, a night out with friends, a bubble bath, playing with pets. But self-care after interpersonal violence also involves a much deeper and more difficult step. A student survivor's previous normal likely prioritized productivity and excellence as students and scholars. The academic and performance grind often leaves students little time to love themselves, or maybe even like themselves. In addition to this fast-paced culture of college life, many survivors experience feelings of shame, guilt, or unworthiness in the aftermath of their assault. For survivors, healing often starts with first recognizing and accepting that they matter, not just for what they create, how they perform on an exam, or the grades they make at the end of the semester, but they matter as a human being who exists just as they are and is worthy of love and care. Create a daily practice to learn to love yourself. Ask yourself each morning, how can I love myself better today? Listen to what your mind, body, and spirit tells you that it needs. Explore. Make lists of what you do well. Talk to people you love. Read affirming poetry or books. Create. Draw, sew, write, cook, bake, anything. Keep a nightly gratitude journal where you appreciate yourself for the love that you have given. Check in with your body. Hydrate, stretch, take your vitamins, take naps. Practice grounding exercises or deep breathing to help with anxiety and stress. You don't have to do it all. Even just one small thing every day is enough. You are worthy and deserving of the love you give yourself.
Hello, I am Juniper Nay, a graduating senior studying Communication, Media, and Women and Gender Studies. While carrying myself as a student leader and vice president of the movement Interpersonal Violence Peer Educators on North Carolina State University's campus, I joined the movement because as a survivor and as a woman of color, it is necessary to provide space and voice for those enduring and healing from interpersonal violence. No matter where we stand and where we are today, I extend a hand and will let you know in this very instant that I hear you and that I see you. We do not tolerate any forms of interpersonal violence and or toxicity on this very campus, in our community, and it is in our initiative to shed light on this at a community and at a national level. The movement Interpersonal Violence Peer Educators strives to provide awareness and political involvement in the areas of interpersonal violence that many college students and individuals endure today. The movement is a group of trained interpersonal prevention peer educators within the NC State Women's Center and seeks to end interpersonal violence at NC State through peer education, advocacy, and collaborative action in order to ensure a safe and equitable campus community. We host educational workshops offered to the NC State community, which includes various awareness campaigns such as stalking, bystander support, and healthy relationships. We created relationships and partnerships amongst the NC State campus where student organizations take the pledge of being an advocate and supporter events, such as our collaboration with Brenda Tracy in athletics for #SetTheExpectation and our movement challenge offered during the fall 2020 semester with fraternity and sorority life. I would like to thank those who made time to attend our workshops, educational events, and that took part in our #SetTheExpectation and movement challenge campaigns. With this support, we were able to advocate for interpersonal violence prevention and awareness and extend our networking to other branches of the NC State community. During the ongoing pandemic, we've been striving to communicate to students virtually ways to seek and find help in the case of interpersonal violence relations and obstacles that they are facing outside of the campus or on campus. We strive to ensure that our workshops, practices, and missions revolve around the well-being and intersectional equity that our students and community deserves. And with that, I ask that we take this initiative and join hands. There's power in numbers and definitely power in unity. I ask that we use our platforms and resources to advocate for one another in relations to the injustices that our fellow peers face every day in hopes for a better tomorrow and a better future. As the semester ends, please be reminded to always express activism and allyship across our communities, homes, and relationships with one another.
Tips from the Survivor Toolkit. Remind yourself, I'm doing the best I can. Student survivors of interpersonal violence often experience a wide range of responses to trauma as they navigate unprecedented changes to their daily routines, including fear and anxiety of being on campus, walking to class, grabbing lunch in the dining hall, going to the gym, or attending social events where they may no longer feel safe, difficulty focusing on schoolwork and assignment, disrupted sleep habits, to just name a few. Often, these disruptions to life as normal come as an additional shock, and survivors are faced with balancing how to adjust to a new normal, juggling the impact of trauma, their identity as a scholar with academic and professional goals, and daily tasks and obligations. It is not an easy task, and the depth of these new challenges are rarely understood by friends, family, peers, and faculty, without extensive explanation, details, or justifications of how their normal has changed when the world around them continues without disruption. Survivors are often faced with the difficult challenge of putting academics, work, or other priorities on the back burner as they focus on their healing and recovery. Without consciously realizing it, survivors may need to shift, or they may have already shifted, some of their hierarchy of values. Try writing out your values. What is most important to you right now? You might find some contradictions, or maybe even some changes. Aligning your action with your values is the best that you can do right now. Recognize what might be holding you back. Are you judging yourself or holding yourself to impossible standards? Are you fearful of the judgment of others? Be gentle with yourself as you let go some of your previous values and responsibilities that go along with them as you reprioritize as a response to crisis. Your healing matters, and you're doing the best that you can.
Hi, my name is Alexius Pearson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Interpersonal Violence Response Coordinator here at NC State, and I'm a survivor. I am not only connected to this movement through work, but through life experiences, education, and more. I, during college, was a survivor of sexual assault and domestic violence. Interpersonal violence was something I was not a stranger to by then. It was present in my childhood household, and I use an S because myself, like others, come from a blended family. And these interactions have impacted the family dynamics and relationship dynamics throughout my life. Through being a primary and secondary survivor, I learned the importance of many things. But 3 things I'm going to touch on tonight is the voices of survivors, solidarity against the isms, and survivor support. And for me, my journey not only began through life, but it began through internships, research, obtaining my master's in criminal justice from North Carolina Central University, going on to become a legal advocate for IPV survivors for a nonprofit in Durham County, and now my new home as a survivor support advocate here at NC State. And so during this time, I have been able to work remote, which is a privilege I have to name. And in this space, I have been able to sit in the world and view it in a way I have not fully experienced it like many, in stillness. Forced to confront and connect with personal and worldly issues, because now less time outside and more time in. When confronting these issues, I realized some of these spaces, myself, like others, have become desensitized to. And it's not because we do not care, but because we have begun to consider it normal. So many occurrences have become so frequent, they didn't seem a stranger. And it can look like phrases from boys will be boys, what happens in my house stays in my house, men don't cry, you're just a woman, and more. And in these spaces, misogyny, patriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy, and similar ideologies have sat in phase as a part of that word normal. But however, during this time, many shifts have taken place as we've connected mentally, emotionally, and spiritually in fortuity and joy. And in the midst of chaos, we have been a part of something astonishing. We have confronted movements, centered voices to strong in solidarity, and continue to transform the world around us. I am honored to be in this space with you all as we acknowledge what we are battling, but bask in the ways we continue to write our narrative, full of love, joy, happiness, freedom, and free of violence. A year ago, myself, like many folks, were immediately filled with fear, uncertainty, hopelessness, loneliness, pain, guilt, anger, and so much more due to the COVID-19 pandemic, added to the emotions that accompany the hate crimes, the racism, human trafficking, and sexual assault, and interpersonal violence that we either survived during this time or witnessed. It felt like the world had come to a hard stop, and whoever was at the wheel did not see a red light and slammed on brakes. And as the world stopped and focused on COVID-19 to increase safety, save lives, and end the pandemic, many not only felt the devastation still of the virus, but also the heightened barriers of interpersonal violence that COVID-19 introduced. IPV affects people regardless of their gender identity, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, abilities, social economic status, or geographic location. But during this time, IPV survivors had reduced access to in-person services and resources, such as counseling, support groups, and emergency shelters. Quarantine has isolated survivors from their supportive individuals and networks, increasing the risk of violence that they are experiencing, especially if they are in sheltering with their abuser. This time has increased the risk of experiencing cyberstalking, online harassment, financial abuse, and control over day-to-day movements. Impacts such as these have affected all survivors, but it's important to state that survivors of color continue to be disproportionately affected when it comes to violence rates, access to resources, COVID-19 hospitalization, and deaths. COVID-19 not only highlighted the exclusionary fabric woven into our nation's history, it pulled forward joy. Many shows and platforms have brought forth the voices and joys of communities of color, highlighting history, culture, and have brought forth the movers and the shakers from various generations. During this time, people have continued to share their stories, using their voices to center their experiences, to hold folks accountable, educate at their leisure, and put out calls to action. Here, it's important to note, a voice, even if it's just one voice, in a room full of silence, is powerful. Voices have started revolutions, pushed bills to protect immigrant and LGBTQ plus rights, raised awareness about sexual assault in correctional facilities, calls for justice for Black and brown folks slain by police brutality, and so much more. Here, in our own NC State community, many student-led organizations have sent emails, created Instagrams, Facebooks, TikToks, and memes, sharing survivor stories and inciting action through storytelling, stating claims that their voices matter and it is revolutionary, centering their NC State experiences while bringing forth their worldly experiences that they've carried with them here. If any person listening today that has been a part of this movement, please know that we see you, we hear you, and we believe you. When I think about the work put forth by students and spaces created or supported by staff, I think about this quote by the Angela Davis, in which she says, "It is in collectivities that we find reservoirs of hope and optimism." I'll say it again for the people in the back. It is in collectivities that we find reservoirs of hope and optimism. Despite Zoom bombers, students and staff continue to push forward, giving themselves to liberation. And when I speak of liberation, I also speak of the liberation that has come with the past year. Freeing ourselves of the internal oppression we have faced for so long that can sit within our body image, our sexuality, our work ethic, or our productivity. By binding together in this solidarity, we work towards a truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive space, not based in performative measures, but in true word and intentional deed. I say all this to say, I encourage you to use your voice, if you can, to challenge, to empower, and to ignite conversations that lead to change. Some ways you can use your voice is through storytelling, volunteering, donating to a charity you believe in, reposting or retweeting important information. And this piece, the term voice is a noun and a verb, and you get to choose how you share your voice. And please know that those options are limitless. Do not be afraid to continue to create and take up space in your community, class, place of employment, household, or when or wherever you feel comfortable to do so. Taking up space announces that you are here and you belong. Declaring peace with who you are without self-judgment. Let's say it again. Woo! Without self-judgment. When you take up space, you are combating the inaccurate thoughts that you are not enough, not worthy, or have no value. And despite the narrative that may have been present in your whole life, who you are and what you stand for is valuable. It can be scary, but take your power back. If someone says you are too loud, you say you are high energy. Hey. If they say you are aggressive, tell them you are assertive. And if they say your name is too difficult, feel free to tell them it's unique. And if they do not have the energy to learn the correct pronunciation, then you do not have the energy for this conversation. And in the words of my mama, be you, boo, because life is short, Shug, and you should live in it as freely as possible. Here at NC State, we are all survivors or victims connecting through common ground in order to heal and exist in authenticity. In order to foster the space of healing and transformation, we at the Women's Center serve all students of all gender identities, gender expressions, and sexual orientations that identify as survivors of interpersonal violence, and this can include relationship violence, stalking, and sexual assault. If you or someone you know is dealing with interpersonal violence, please know that you are not alone and we are here for you. Advocates, such as myself, within a Women's Center support students by providing emotional support to help them attain many resources, such as academic accommodations, accompaniment to hospitals, police stations, and court, soft handoffs and communication to additional university resources, and sometimes even helping students understand things like protective orders or the difference between criminal charges and a university investigation. We work with partners across the university to help survivors navigate their healing and recovery. We will never try to convince or pressure a survivor to take any particular action. We will be there for survivors and support them no matter the decisions they make. And in truth, we are all survivors, but we are also all advocates in our own prospective lives. And we can support survivors that reach out to us. When supporting survivors of sexual assault and other forms of interpersonal violence, it is important to listen and believe them and help validate their experiences and the way they feel. Because belief is powerful. It can determine the next step survivors can take. It can determine how they navigate their journey of healing. And in a society that continues victim blaming, let your friend, family member, classmate, partner, or roommate know that the assault was not their fault and they deserve to live authentically, free of violence. Continue to make space for survivors to stand in their truth, giving your support by being a listening ear, sometimes sharing information, but not to control their narrative, but instead empowering them to do what they feel is best for them. We are all human and we continue to learn new things every day. We come to a space not as experts, but lifelong learners and teachers. If a survivor shares their story with you, it's okay not to have all the answers, but there is power in knowing resources to share. And that can look like offering to walk with them or sit with them while they go to the counseling center or contact the Women's Center. Healing isn't linear. It looks different for everyone. In this space, please have patience with yourself and have grace with the survivors you are there for. Because as a survivor, it may not always feel like we have power, but we have the power. We have choices and we have a voice. We can decide how we want to move forward, and if we want to share our story or what our healing paths look like. And during this time, I have not provided a textbook definition of the characteristics of a survivor, because you get to decide who you are and how you identify with the word survivor. I thank you all for allowing me to be present with you during this transformative space. And I'm honored to be connected with you all in spirit and in truth. I would like to share a passage by Bell Hooks from All About Love, New Version. Contrary to what we may have been taught to think, unnecessary and unchosen suffering wounds us, but not need scar us for life. It does not mark us. What we allow the mark of our suffering to become is in our hands. And it hit me in my soul, so I'm gonna share it again. Contrary to what we may have been taught to think, unnecessary and unchosen suffering wounds us, but need not scar us for life. It doesn't mark us. What we allow the mark of our suffering to become is in our own hands. With that, I'll leave you with this final thoughts. There is a tomorrow, and even though we cannot change the past, the power to change the future sits within you, and it sits within all of us as a collective entity. Change is thinking and acting with intention every day by being aware of self and those connected to you. Those surrounding you will see you grow. They will engage in your growth and begin to morph with you. Because change is rooted in care, transparency, understanding, acknowledgement, honesty, respect, conversations like these, and so much more. Thank you.
Tips from the Survivor Toolkit. Connect with people who believe you. Find people who will support, affirm, and listen to you. Create boundaries as best you can with those who are not supportive, kind, and loving of you and your experience. Make space to feel what you feel, whether it is happiness, sadness, or uncertainty. Allow yourself to move through your feelings, possibly with a trusted pal. Share the experiences that impact you, no matter how big or small you think they are. You might be surprised and reassured that others share similar feelings or experiences. Your experience is valid. Your feelings are valid. Find people you can confide in without judgment about the struggles you are facing, and even perhaps some of the judgments you may fear as you focus on new priorities and previous priorities fall to the side. Be creative and find new ways to connect, like writing letters, sending cards, sending text affirmations, making time for phone calls, or walks with friends. Other options include joining the movement peer educators or connecting with programming through the Women's Center or the other campus community centers. We believe you, you are worthy, and you are enough. I want to give a heartfelt thanks to our speakers this evening. Tashana, Juniper, and Alexius, thank you for sharing your voices and your stories. You are an inspiration to this campus. I also want to thank all of you who joined us tonight to honor and lift up their stories and to honor the stories of all survivors at NC State, even the stories that have not yet been shared. We close this evening with an invitation for members of our community who either identify as survivors or who have experienced any form of interpersonal violence. We recognize that the relationship with the term survivor can be a delicate dance for many students impacted by interpersonal violence. Many struggle to come to terms with what it means to call themselves a survivor. Surviving means accepting that you have lived through trauma. In many cases, it means recognizing that trauma has changed you. Not every individual who has experienced interpersonal violence will identify as a survivor, and that is okay. Not everyone will recognize their experience as a form of violence or trauma. Some may not yet have been given long enough a reprieve from violence, an escape, or an end to begin to process and make sense of their experiences. Naming the experience of interpersonal violence and identifying as a survivor is a process of acceptance that can take months, years, decades, and it may only come with a balance of support and resources. And yet, when it is safe and the right time, many survivors may feel seen and heard when they share their experiences with trusted supports, friends or family that confide in who believe them, counseling or mental health resources, women's center advocates, and often, above all else, other survivors. Our invitation tonight is for individuals in our community who have been impacted by interpersonal violence and feel safe and ready to share your own individual story by creating artwork, poems, or love letters to yourself or other survivors. Share with us how you have healed. Share with us where you find your strength. You can share your stories by submitting to go.ncsu.edu/speakout. This is just the beginning.